Open your ears and lube up your butthole. It's time for the What Do We Call It podcast. Now, here's your host. It's Jmann. Welcome to the What Do We Call It podcast. I'm Jmann.
And I'm number one fan, Tim.
I'm going to let you talk and vent some shit out because you came to me tonight with something. I feel like it's show-worthy.
Oh, the shit with my ex?
Yeah, with the kid and the...
Oh, yeah.
So you come in tonight and you start telling me about your ex, Leadhead, and an argument that you guys had over your youngest son's medications that she suddenly feels are terrible for him.
She thinks they're bad for him because in wake of the recent mass shootings, she found an article on Facebook, of all places, that linked all these mass shootings to various medications to treat depression, anxiety, and even some that treat ADHD, which Bubba is currently on. He's on one for ADHD.
Which one, if you don't mind my asking?
Starts with a G. I can't remember the name of it.
It's Gafembrazil?
Something like that. Gorvison or something. I could text... This is number one.
I don't know what that is, but it's probably generic for something.
It's used to treat high blood pressure and ADHD. It can be used to treat both, according to the psychologist that prescribed it. A very low dose, 1 milligram.
Okay.
And he's only been on it for like the last 2 weeks, and even then, he's only taken it maybe 5 times. He keeps forgetting, and I'm not home in the morning to make him take it, and I can't always call home to tell him.
Does it have to be an AM dosage?
Yeah, because it's ADHD, so you take it in the morning, so it kind of goes through the day. And we're thinking when he starts school that he'll take one in the morning, and it's not a long release, so he'd need a bumper or an extra dose probably around just after lunch.
Like a PRN, just to kind of get him through?
Yeah, probably either a same dose or a smaller dose.
Okay.
And that's just to get him through school so he can focus and everything. And the psychologist thinks this will help his anger. It'll help him keep in check while he's doing a DBT program for anger management and everything like that. I mean, we're trying all kinds of things here. And for me, the medication is just a crutch to help him get through everything so that, he can process.
I just want to stop you for a second for people that don't know what DBT is. It's dialectal behavioral therapy.
Yes.
I couldn't explain it to you, but I know the acronym because I've heard it for years because of inmates that would go to DBT.
Yeah, it's basically anger management, but it's specialized in a way.
Okay, let's see if I can pull a rabbit out of my hat. Looking for
guanfacine.
Guanfacine? Okay.
That's the stuff that he's just recently been put on at 1 milligram. So, he's been on that, and he was on Zoloft or another one of those for anxiety. Mm-hmm. And he was only on it for about a year and a half. And, the whole time she's completely against it, but, she was doing it. I did notice that when I sent medications to her house, he wasn't getting them. Either he didn't want to take them or she wouldn't, she's like, throw them in the garbage because she didn't want to give them to him. So she sees this article. I saw the article, but I didn't read it because I thought it was just total BS. It says, one thing links all mass shootings, and it's not guns. And it's got a picture of pills behind the headline. It's like, okay, so they're saying medications of some kind.
I just want to say that you already lost me on that argument, whoever wrote that, because you're using an absolute statement as the crux of your argument. And you're also doing it with, I'm assuming, pseudoscience / hyperbolic English.
Pretty much. If you want, I can pull it up on my phone and you can see it. You can give it a read. But in this article, it talks about how supposedly pharmaceutical companies have been hiding the fact that some of these drugs can cause things to be worse. It gives a couple of examples it lists out all the people for, quote, mass shootings and what prescriptions they were on at the time or just before they did the mass shooting.
How the fuck did you get that protected data? How did anybody find that shit out?
That's my question. But when you read the list also, only like 5 or 6 of the 20 or so that are on there are actual mass shootings. The rest of them are kids who committed suicide or killed their parents and then committed suicide or killed another family member, this, that, and the other. And it's on various drugs. I mean, it was Paxil, Zoloft. One of them claimed it was Ritalin. All these different medications these people were on when they committed these heinous crimes or committed suicide.
I got a couple of little nuggets here. Guanfacine is a medication that one of my clients takes. He has FAS, fetal alcohol syndrome, and ADHD and extreme anger issues. He's been diagnosed recently with intermittent explosive disorder.
Okay.
He takes it. I haven't seen him when he's off it, but I know that he has impulse control issues due to the FAS, and that the guanfacine has tempered him down.
Yeah. So like I said, this would be good for Bubba, but Leadhead is against it. She read this article, sent it to me, saying, I don't want him on medications anymore.
Okay, well, here's the thing, though. A lot of medications cause weird secondary side effects. And for years, you see commercials for antidepressants that say, if you experience an increase in suicidal ideation, contact your psychiatrist immediately. Or shit like that.
Yeah.
It's a weird side effect, and it's all part of the chemical mechanism of what's going on in the body. One other thing I would like to state is, let me just close this. It kind of irks me that they're saying these people were on these meds, because the public can only hope that there's journalistic integrity. I can't verify that data thanks to HIPAA laws. No one's going to say, oh, Adam Lanza, the half-tard that shot up Sandy Hook, was taking these meds. Now, they might have said it, but they probably shouldn't have, unless his doctor was spoken to during the course of the investigation and then was on the bench during his trial, and it was made part of the trial information, which is public data. But you can't just be like, hey, that guy that killed somebody last week, I want to know if he was on any psych meds. You can't do that shit.
No, it's private information, yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, who's to say that the person who wrote this article isn't part of a larger lobbyist group that is a branch of one of these fucking dim-witted anti-vaxxer movements?
It very well could be that. That's actually one of my first impressions when I read the article.
Because, yeah, we can't confirm this. People said that Adolf Hitler dabbled in methamphetamine. And there's talk that the Nazis, took meth so that they could be fearless.
I've seen those passed around on some of the websites I cruise around when I'm just looking up World War II stuff, and it's hard to believe.
But what this does is it scapegoats medication, which is no different than what Senate Minority Leader, what the fuck is his last name, Mitchell, I think?
Mitch McConnell.
No, that's Majority Leader.
Oh, that's Majority.
That's Gobbleneck McConnell. No, I'm talking about this other fuck that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez went after, and I'm on her side on this, because this dumb motherfucker once again tried to make the argument that, well, we need to do something about violent video games because people are playing these games and it's teaching them to devalue human life, and they take joy in committing murders. And they're going out there and doing these mass shootings. And I'm like, no, motherfucker, you're not right any more than when they tried to blame Columbine on Marilyn Manson and Rammstein.
Yeah.
They might have listened to those bands, but it doesn't mean that music encouraged them through lyrical content to go out and commit mass fucking murder.
I have to be honest. I mean, Rammstein is mostly sung in German, but I don't think any of it, from what I can, stuff that has been translated, is telling you to go out and kill people.
It's not. I've read a lot. I'm a big fan of them, and a great deal of their lyrics are translated into English, and it doesn't have to do with that.
No, it doesn't. But their best hit, You Hate Me, it's just like, it's not really about hate.
Yeah, I
haven't read it in a long time.
It's dumb, and this video game argument being made today the same way it was made 20 years ago.
I've been playing violent video games since I was like 9. I don't get done playing a video game and be like, God, I gotta fucking kill somebody.
Yeah, but if you're gonna ban violent video games, then you need to ban violent TV shows that show murder, and you need to go out there and just run the gamut of sanitizing all the mass media that people consume so that they don't get desensitized to violence. Now, I watched shit tons of fucked up assassination videos on bestgore.com. They're not a sponsor, but they should be, because I plug them whenever I can. Bestgore.com, not for the faint of heart, you will see murder. It's a website that shows that stuff, not for shock value, but because that's the type of shit that the media doesn't want to show you, so you don't know what's going on.
I'm actually kind of intrigued.
You will probably want to vomit when you see some of this stuff, like the mutilation videos with the drug cartels.
I can't handle blood that well, which is probably why I'll never go watch it.
Okay, well, for instance, the other night I watched a man get his feet hacked off with a machete, then his arms sawn off with the same machete, and then the video ended.
Who records this shit?
Drug cartels, to put it on the internet to scare the other cartels, don't fuck with us. Anyways, just because I've watched videos of people being murdered with knives doesn't make me want to go out and commit murders with knives. Now, I might have a little bit of knowledge as to how to dismember a human body now, but that in and of itself, that knowledge doesn't translate into operative behavioral patterns where I go out and commit murder.
Yeah.
So they're looking for scapegoats, and it's a totally different episode if we talk about El Paso and Dayton, because there's a whole fucking rabbit hole to go down with that shit.
Yeah.
But we're talking about your kid and the meds. The meds themselves are not going to make Bubba act a certain way. This becomes nature versus nurture. He did not have, and I don't mean this to sound judgmental of you, what I would call a stable adolescence.
He really didn't.
It's in no way an indictment of you,
no,
or
I
even
look at
your
the history
ex,
of everything, yeah.
or even your ex, who's fucking batshit crazy. And I'm glad I just reminded myself we're going to talk about the thing that we talked about last time. The kid's house burned down when he was 3.
2.5, yeah.
And then you guys split up.
A month later.
And he's had, the only constant has been change. His baseline is fucking chaos and trying to cope. I'm willing to bet if you did a brain scan of him, there would be multiple visible trauma centers scarring on the brain. Not much different than someone who has a TBI from an impact injury. Because terrible things that happen in your life will cause lesions on your brain of trauma. So when Ariana Grande recently, the singer, had her brain scanned, she's been through a lot of shit. There was the guy that set off like a bomb at one of her concerts in London. And then there was her former boyfriend, Mac Miller, who was a famous rapper who OD'd and died. She's been through some shit. So she wanted a brain scan, and it showed a normal brain, a TBI scan, and her brain. And I can tell you right now, her fucking brain, when it was scanned, lit up like a Christmas tree from all the trauma she's been through.
Bubba's would probably do pretty much the same thing. I mean, other than I've been living in the same house and we've kind of held a family routine, it's just outside things keep happening. He witnessed the dog at his mother's house get hit by a car. He witnessed, I guess, I just found this out today. Apparently she was bucked off a horse and she fell on the ground and she ended up with a slight neck injury for a very brief period of time. The house fire. And then the realization 2 years ago was like, wait a minute, you and my mother are divorced? Yeah. That's why she married that guy and I married Mrs. Number One Fan.
Yeah, it's weird that he didn't
occur to him
that. Yeah.
And all of a sudden he finds out about it and it just, holy shit, that's just more trauma.
But it's just like when children are molested at a young age. It locks their psyche in that level of emotional maturation. So if you're 5 and your dad finger bangs you, guess what? You're kind of going to be like a 5-year-old the rest of your life. You will mature, you will grow, you will learn. You're not actually going to be a fucking 5-year-old like you were born mentally disabled, but you will have childlike tendencies and an inability to process many adult concepts healthily because you're locked in that stage of development psychologically. So for him, all this shit that went down, we're talking about a kid that's 11, 12?
He's 13.
Okay, so he's hitting puberty and he's a rage of emotions and he's learning to deal with that while he still, for 8-9 years, didn't fucking grasp the concept that you guys were divorced.
Yeah.
It's kind of like sometimes when Chi-Chi will ask me, are you and my mommy ever going to get married? And it's like, dude, no. And then there was a time she asked me and I fucking laughed out loud while we were in the car. I'm like, sweetie, that ship sailed a long fucking time ago. That will never happen. Stop asking. And I was very dismissive of that and kind of cruel in how I laughed. But I just laughed. Like, I couldn't fucking control myself. It was so hilarious. Because I've said it, but kids, they develop into who they are as adults, and there's many bumps along the way. And the more fucking trauma you go through, the more fucked up you're going to be as an adult. And then it's incumbent upon you and your parents and your doctors and your therapists and all that to try to unpack that baggage to try to reset your brain.
Yep. And that's a lot of what I've been trying to do for the last couple of years now.
But one strategy that I, in my opinion, don't feel works is going onto the internet, looking for arguments or articles that support your hypothesis. Yes, you want to find things that reinforce your ideas, but to read something that is on the fringe of what you were thinking, and then it drastically changes your whole understanding of the process, of the situation. She was fine with him taking the meds, kind of, but not really. So she reads this, and all it does is reinforce the bullshit she already thought.
Yeah, that's very similar to when she, a couple months ago, decided that he might be high-functioning autistic because she was recently diagnosed with that. And now she thinks, oh yeah, he's just like me. He's got the same thing I have. That's why he can't process things the way he's supposed to and the way normal people do. That's why he does things kind of similar to how I do them. And he's just like me, this, that, and the other, which is why she wants to have him evaluated, because she's trying to pinpoint this on him so that she can share it with him. And it's all about Bubba. Bubba's like me. I'm like Bubba, because that's her favorite kid of the two. But she seems to forget that Pubert is high-functioning autistic.
Mm-hmm.
But she doesn't say he's like me. It's all about Bubba.
And I'm going to try to be pragmatic with this next statement.
Okay.
When you gain knowledge that makes sense of musings or hypotheses you had long ago, stuff that causes you to go, oh, okay, that makes sense. Not that it just completely reinforces what you already thought. It's not regurgitating the same shit. You're not chasing a rabbit hole of what you already supposed.
Mm-hmm.
But say you read something like, oh, I had this impression that there was always something wrong with a family member. And then you find out that, years after they've died, well, nobody wanted to talk about this, but they got molested by a preacher or a gym coach or somebody. You're like, oh, okay, that makes sense of so much more shit. So what she's doing is finding that out about herself, and it's making her think, oh, I've got this figured out.
Yeah, she watched a few videos on YouTube, and she thinks she knows more than the experts that have been evaluating him, the therapist, the psychologist, the school staff that works with him on a daily basis. She thinks she knows more than they do because she watched about 4 or 5 YouTube videos.
But when I have to go at it with
the beast,
I cite specific examples of times I've been through the same shit or had common knowledge similar to what we're arguing about. I will consider the opposing argument. She won't. So what Leadhead is doing right now is going off the deep end. Think of the mountain of evidence, the laundry list of people you just rattled off their names, that all are of the same or similar opinion about him. And suddenly she's like, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Yep.
That's not okay. You're not right. And it's almost like she's tap dancing right there on the border of Munchausen's by proxy, where she starts coming up with all these ideas of things that are wrong with them. Oh, the doctors don't know. They can't fucking figure it out. I'm the one who's going to figure it out. And then, women like that will put their kid through this myriad of unnecessary fucking medical experimentations or procedures trying to cure these mystery ailments that no doctor could figure out, but they suddenly were like, aha, I know.
That's kind of what she's doing, and almost exactly how she sounds at times.
Yeah. Nobody knows him like I know him. Bitch, you are with him a quarter of the fucking time.
Not even. She sees him every other weekend and every Wednesday for a couple of hours when she takes him out to dinner.
So that being said, he's with you. We'll handicap it at 85% of the time then.
That sounds accurate.
Okay, 85 to 15. Would you say that you've been through more periods of behavioral upticks than she has at your house than she has at hers?
Let me think. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of a fucking rhetorical question, honestly.
oh yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say she's outright crazy, but she's misinformed, and it's the exact same type of gusto that the beast had when she, first learned about, there's a study that links vaccinations to autism. And I said for years, I'm like, there's no fucking way they would continue to vaccinate this many children and accept, X amount percentage as being collateral damage to ending these diseases. They might, for the sake of the greater good of public health.
The greater good.
Right, it's the government. They'll do a lot of fucked up shit just to keep themselves afloat. But it just didn't make sense to me that with the Hippocratic Oath and the do no harm mentality, that many doctors aren't going to go, well, on fucking autism, I don't know, we better stop giving these kids shots, and maybe a few of them get polio, and maybe they don't, I don't fucking know. But it's just, I don't know, let's stop. They didn't do that shit. There was a small pocket of fringe-minded individuals that all went, well, this is dangerous and we're going to stop. And now it's an entire fucking movement thanks to stupid big-mouth cunts like Jenny McCarthy.
Yeah.
Who for years was like, you shouldn't vaccinate your kids because my son got vaccinated. Now he's autistic. Bitch, you're looking for something to make sense of your child not being perfect. I get it. You want an explanation as to how this happened because then it takes the onus off of you because you probably have a little bit of guilt that maybe, oh, your genetics caused it. We don't know. Maybe it did. Maybe it didn't. Science is a weird motherfucker.
You know, that's one thing when you mentioned that genetics thing. It's like when Pubert was originally diagnosed with being autistic, I wasn't like, oh, what vaccination? Or I was just like, oh, okay, well, maybe he bumped his head really hard as an infant or something like that. You know, I didn't know. Because I mean, some of the things he did, I did when I was a kid, but I outgrew it. And I'm guessing some of the things that Leadhead did when she was a kid, Nathan kind of did. You know, but we never really talked to figure out what exactly was the problem. We just like, okay, well, you know, we just need to work a little bit harder and it's going to be a little bit of a struggle for him. Well, in light of her recently being diagnosed, like, okay, well, that makes sense running down her bloodline. But then I look at Bubba and then I'm looking at Turtle and it's just like, well, I mean, I could blame Bubba and Pubert on her bloodline, kind of.
But then you see stuff in
not
Turtle.
Seeking to blame, yeah. But now I have Turtle, who has some of the same things that Bubba has. So it's like, okay, so I'm the common denominator. So there's something in my genes that ain't quite right. So it's just going to be a little more work. It's not, oh my God, the vaccinations. I'm not looking to blame it. I'm just looking, how can I make it easier for them?
Right, and the beast was. So the day I was sitting in front of the TV at our old apartment, fucking folding laundry or something, and they said, a new report tonight of the doctor who originally conducted the study that linked autism to vaccinations has now backed off of that, stating that he misreported some of the findings.
Cherry-pick data.
And I said, get your bitch ass in here right now. She's like, what? I'm like, sit the fuck down. They just previewed a story that's coming up. We're going to watch this. I'm like, oh, look at that. He lied about linking autism to vaccinations. Holy fucking shit.
I've never, ever been an anti-vax person.
But also with what you're saying about having 3 kids that are, you know, borderline or on the spectrum, I'm air quoting. I said this when the Juice had a speech delay, and they said there were red flags for autism. I'm like, the kid's not fucking autistic. She does so many weird, crazy, genius things that are beyond her years. And honestly, what used to be the autism spectrum could be thought of as a closed umbrella. Now, it's wide open, and all these fucking kids and all these people that previously had all these other diagnoses are now being classified and put into this neat, tiny little box of definition of autism disorders. And I think at some point you're overdiagnosing, and I've mentioned this on the show, that I asked the Juice's doctor, same doctor from the last episode with the earwax thing, like, in your opinion, doesn't it seem fishy that there's so many kids being diagnosed with this all of a sudden, almost as if they're over-diagnosing it to explain away shitty behavior? Well, she's like, I don't necessarily want to answer that. She didn't want to say. She didn't want to basically reaffirm what I was stating, that they're over-diagnosing everything. I'm like, autism, ADHD, anxiety disorders, all this shit. Yeah, maybe they have them, but maybe they don't.
I think a large case of it is for like ADHD. Is like you're putting these kids who have so much energy in them. I mean, kids are like little Energizer bunnies. You're putting them in a room for 6 hours and you're expecting them to sit down all day?
And they're screen addicted now, so instead of running around and going out and using their imagination and playing and expelling some of that energy, they don't.
They don't.
They sit around and they just get fat and stupid and play video games or watch YouTube, and they don't use that energy to fucking temper down. So come bedtime, their brain is just fried. It's going a million miles an hour from all the stimulation they've had all fucking day, and no wonder they can't temper down to go to sleep.
No,
so,
yeah, I agree.
This bullshit with the meds, there's a certain degree of every medication that is going, people will have reactions to it. It doesn't mean that it causes behaviors. It might be one piece of a puzzle, but to scapegoat a single cause for an entire societal phenomenon, gun violence in this instance, or violent behavior, if we're using a more generalized term, is irresponsible as all get out. You cannot just break it down to that. That's like saying, well, you get AIDS from gay sex, or blood transfusions, or mother to baby through breast milk and such, or sharing needles. That's more than just two guys butt fucking each other and one of them happened to have the HIV and not know it or lie.
Yeah.
I should know. I did a fucking science project on HIV and AIDS in 5th grade at my Catholic school and caught all kinds of hell for it, by the way. Holy shit. So let's not go off our fucking rockers here with the flush your pills down the toilet because they're making our kids violent. No, because being shit on all the time in a negative society that's full of the internet and all of the bad crap that comes from that is doing something to people. I'm saying the internet, and it's a very broad blame, but there's a lot of different facets to the internet that warp people's minds. Porn, murder videos, social media, the ease of trying to lure children. They're under attack by everything all the time. Their innocence is at stake. But just, well, my kid's got anger issues and he's on meds. I don't want him to take meds. Well, what if you take away the meds and then he fucking kills some people? Well, then what are you going to say? Oh, if you'd have given him those meds that we prescribed that would have maybe helped. You don't know. It's a fucking crapshoot either way.
Yeah. I think at this point, though, I'm going to leave it to the experts to decide what would probably be best. And like I said, we're not relying solely on one thing. We're trying several things together in hopes that it will work.
That's all you can do is have a multiple-pronged attack at something like that. Otherwise, you rely too much on one strategy and then it fails and you're like, well, what the fuck now?
And he could end up completely outgrowing all this shit, too, in the next few years. Who knows?
Or he could grow up to be a chronic masturbator who paints his face like a clown and runs around in parks naked.
That's fine, as long as you get money for it. Have a living and get out of my house.
See, there you go. Silver lining. Interact with the show on Twitter at What Do We Call It? That is at What Do We Call It? You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/What Do We Call It podcast show. For the What Do We Call It podcast, I'm Jmann.
And I'm number one fan Tim.
And that's the end.